There's a number Red Bull cannot make disappear, no matter how many upgrades they bolt onto the car. Right now, Max Verstappen sits 7th in the championship. To keep him, the contract says he has to be 2nd, and the gap between those two numbers is the gap a 4-time world champion is about to walk through. This is the situation Red Bull has spent 6 months praying it would never have to face. The whole paddock assumed the same thing. Fix the RB22, stabilize the engine project, and Verstappen honors his deal to 2028. That assumption is quietly falling apart, because the thing keeping him wasn't loyalty, and it wasn't the contract length. It was a single clause, and that clause is days from springing open. Nobody has seen a signed photograph. There's been no press release, no rival team standing him up in new colors. But the machinery that decides his future is already turning, and every piece of it is pointing the same direction. If you want to understand why Red Bull's entire structure is bracing for the loss of the best driver it has ever had, and why the people inside Milton Keynes already seem to know how this ends, stay with this and get subscribed, because the most important contract in Formula One is being decided right now, in the space between what's said in public and what's already been decided in private. This is the story of how a clause Verstappen wrote into his own contract years ago became the trapdoor under Red Bull's entire future, and why, by the time it opens, the decision may already have been made. Start with the clause itself, because everything turns on it. Verstappen's deal formally runs to the end of 2028, but buried inside it is an exit mechanism, and it isn't a vague gentleman's agreement. It's tied to a hard, measurable number. If he isn't inside the top 2 of the Drivers' Championship at the summer break, the door opens. He can leave, and the contract doesn't care about excuses, momentum, or upgrades that might come good. It cares about points on the board on one specific date. This is the detail that should chill Red Bull. The clause was reportedly Verstappen's own idea, written in when he signed, specifically because he was uneasy about the 2026 regulations he could already see coming. Think about what that means. Years ago, with Red Bull at the absolute peak of its dominance, winning almost everything, the most feared team on the grid, Verstappen still insisted on an escape hatch. Not because anything was wrong then, but because he could sense what the rule change might do. He didn't trust that the new era would leave his team at the front. So he built himself a door out of the most dominant car in the sport for exactly the scenario that's now unfolding. The worry that prompted it has been vindicated in the most brutal way possible, and the man who saw it coming is the one now holding the key. Look at where he actually sits, 7th in the standings, somewhere around 100 points adrift of the teenager running away with the title Kimi Antonelli, and well outside the top 2 the clause demands. The summer break arrives right after the Hungarian Grand Prix in late July, and that race is the reference point. With the races remaining, closing that gap to 2nd in a car that has spent the season off the ultimate pace isn't a long shot. It's very close to mathematically impossible. The clause that was written as insurance is about to become live. And here's what tells you how seriously Red Bull is taking it. They tried to buy it back. According to reporting from Germany, the team explored buying out the exit clause entirely, paying Verstappen a sum simply to delete the escape hatch from the contract. One report put the figure at close to $7 million to remove that single clause, a fortune to most of the world, and pocket change against what losing him would cost. A 4-time champion walking out doesn't just leave an empty seat. It can trigger penalty terms in a team's biggest sponsorship deals, weaken its hand with every future partner, and strip away the one name that sells the whole project. Set against that, $7 million to make the problem vanish is almost nothing. And they still couldn't get it done. Look closer at why, because it reveals something the official statements won't. This wasn't a unified team acting with confidence. Reports describe Red Bull's own shareholders split on what to do. The Thai stakeholder, Chalerm Uvidya, reportedly in favor of neutralizing the clause, while others on the corporate side were reluctant. When the people who own the team can't agree on how to keep their own driver, that's not the picture of an organization in control of its future. That's an organization that can feel the ground shifting. So far, that buyout hasn't happened. And the longer it doesn't, the louder the silence becomes. Because the one thing that would settle all of this is the one thing Verstappen refuses to do: publicly commit. Red Bull's management has reportedly asked him directly to stand up and declare he's staying. It would stabilize everything, let them hire, reassure sponsors, end the speculation in a sentence. He hasn't said it. After a quiet meeting with the team's leadership in Austria earlier this year, he gave them nothing they could hold on to. And in this sport, when the most important man in the building won't say the simple thing that would end the crisis, the refusal is the answer. To understand why he's keeping that door open, you have to look at what's already walked out of it. The Red Bull that Verstappen signed his extension with no longer exists. The people who made it his team are gone, one after another. Adrian Newey, the designer behind every car that carried him to a title, left in 2024. Christian Horner, who ran the team for 20 years, was removed from his role in 2025. Helmut Marko, the man who found Verstappen as a teenager and shielded him from the corporate machinery for a decade, departed at the end of the year. The architect, the boss, and the protector, all gone inside 18 months. The driver is still there. Almost everyone who built the world around him isn't. A new team principal, Laurent Mekies, has steadied things, and to his credit, Verstappen has spoken warmly about him. But a single steady hand at the top doesn't rebuild the entire support structure that's been hollowed out beneath it. When you've spent your career trusting a specific group of people to give you a winning car, and that group dissolves around you, even loyalty starts to feel like a bet on strangers. And then there's the engine, the part of this that may matter more than all the politics combined. For 2026, Red Bull stopped buying its power unit and started building its own in-house under the Red Bull Ford banner. The Honda engines that powered the dynasty are gone. In their place sits the single biggest gamble in the team's history, a first-time manufacturer attempting to build a competitive Formula One engine from a clean sheet, in an era where the power unit is split nearly 50-50 between combustion and a massive electrical deployment. Building an elite engine from scratch is something even Mercedes and Ferrari, with decades of history, have struggled to get right. And the paddock chatter around Red Bull's early running has carried more anxiety than confidence. Put yourself in Verstappen's position. He's in the prime years of his career, the narrow window where a driver of his caliber should be fighting for championships, not nursing an experiment. He cannot get those years back. And the question in front of him is brutally simple. Do you spend them hoping a first-time engine project comes good? Or do you go somewhere with a proven power unit and a car already at the front? When the rules reset and one team gets it right, the others can spend years catching up. He's watched that happen. He has no intention of being on the wrong side of it. Which brings us to the question the whole paddock is actually asking. Not whether he leaves, but where he goes. And this is where the picture gets genuinely complicated, because the obvious doors are closing. Mercedes was the name linked to him for 2 straight years, the natural destination, the team with the dominant car of this new era. But that door has quietly swung shut. George Russell has made it clear he's staying. And Kimi Antonelli, the kid winning everything, is locked in long-term. There's no seat there for Verstappen, no matter how much Toto Wolff admires him. Ferrari is full, with Leclerc and Hamilton on long deals. The 2 most obvious landing spots for a 4-time champion are, on paper, unavailable. That leaves the door nobody fully expected. In recent days, Verstappen's name has been linked with McLaren, the reigning Constructors' champions, the team that actually got this new era right, following reported conversations with CEO Zak Brown. When Brown was asked about it on the grid, the denial was, let's say, less than airtight. On paper, it makes no sense. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are both tied to long McLaren contracts, and the team has no obvious vacancy. But the brutal truth of modern Formula One is that contracts hold right up until a generational talent comes onto the market. And then the commercial gravity of the best driver alive starts bending things that looked fixed. A team that wasn't looking for a driver suddenly has to ask whether it can afford not to. None of this is confirmed, and it may come to nothing. But the fact that the conversation has already moved from will he leave to which closed door opens for him tells you how far down this road the paddock believes things already are. And there's a darker possibility underneath all of it. Verstappen has spoken openly, more than once, about not enjoying this new era of Formula One, the cars not being fun to drive, whether he wants to keep racing at all. The exit clause doesn't only let him walk to another team, it lets him walk, full stop. For a team built around one driver, the only thing worse than losing him to a rival is losing him to retirement, because you can't even console yourself by watching him struggle somewhere else. Now, the honest counterweight, because this is where most of the noise gets it wrong. Verstappen has not signed anywhere. His own manager, Raymond Vermeulen, has said publicly that the camp wants to stay with Red Bull, that they've never used an exit clause before, that the loyalty is real, provided Max keeps a genuine chance to win. Red Bull's recent upgrades have shown early signs of life, and if that car starts winning again, the entire case to stay grows stronger overnight. It's also entirely possible that what Verstappen is weighing isn't a rival team at all, but whether he wants to keep racing in this era of the sport at all. Every individual thread here can be read more than one way. Nobody outside his innermost circle truly knows what he'll do. but strip away the noise and the shape of it is hard to miss. A clause about to go live, a team whose owners can't agree on how to keep him, a support structure dismantled to the studs, an engine gamble with no guarantee, and a driver who, given every chance to end the speculation with one sentence, keeps choosing silence instead. You don't have to assume a signed contract to see where all of those vectors point. So here's where it actually stands, underneath the headline. The question was never really whether Red Bull could fix the car in time. It was whether anything they did would still be enough to hold a man who built himself a way out before the trouble even started, and who has spent this entire season refusing to promise he'll use the door marked "stay." The clause is days from opening. The team is bracing, and the most telling sign of all is the one thing Verstappen still won't say. Tell me where you land then. Forget the rumors for a second and look only at what's verifiable: the clause, the standings, the silence. If you had to bet today, does Max Verstappen start the 2027 season in a Red Bull, or does he start it somewhere else entirely? Drop your call in the comments.